How do we maintain our state? Now, this is the next piece we want to get into, which is managing your state, because there are problems out there that exist. I don't want to be Pollyanna and overly positive and say, oh, there's no such thing as weeds. Tony Robbins will say this, that if you ignore the weeds, there's no weeds in my garden, there's no weeds, eventually those weeds will overtake the garden. So we want to pay attention to them and then do something about that. So for managing our state, how do we manage our state? Well, several ways to do that, but changing your state, the simplest way is not just what you say, but how you say it. How many of you have ever heard that phrase? It's not just what you say, but how you say it, right? So I could say something positive. Okay, only Steve has. Okay, come on. How many of you have heard it's not just what you say, but how you say it? Hands up nice and high so I can see that we're all still here and engaged. That's awesome. It's true. So I could say to you, let me pick on, Rich has been very helpful. Rich, I could say to you, great job. Does that sound fair? Like, do you agree? Like when I say great job, does it sound congruent?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Believable. But if I say great job and I shake my head and my voice is a little bit different, does that feel different?
Yeah, it feels a little different. Yeah.
A little different, right? And it's not congruent. So it's not just what we say, it's about how we say that makes a difference. And you probably have heard the idea that only certain percentage of our communication is actually through the words that we say. They say actually 7% of what we're communicating is through the words. The other 93% is from our voice tone and our physiology. So that is important. But the other piece is not just what we say, but also what we see. It's not just what you see, but how you see it that matters. What I mean is thinking about that vision that you have, thinking about that goal that you have. Are you seeing it in the most positive light? If you are, then we're in good shape. If you're not, then that's a problem. And I want to talk about changing our state in the way we look at things in relation to three things. Our goals, that's one. Our self-image, and also in relation to money. And you can apply this to really anyone, anywhere. And I would love to take you through an exercise. So if we go back to this concept right here of the results model, and we perceive the events out there in the world through our modalities, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic as the primary ones. Inside of our head, the way that we represent things is typically either by self-talk, what we say, or what we see. So if we want to change how we feel about something, we want to change how we're looking at it. We can change our tonality too, but let's start with how we're looking at it. I would love for all of us to bring to mind a picture, if you would. And if you're listening to this while you're driving, do not do this while you're driving. This will be a closed eye exercise. Make sure you're nice and safe. And so go ahead and bring up a picture of that vision that you have. Or if you don't quite have that vision that you mentioned earlier about scaling your business to 10 or 20 or 50 million and having it be on autopilot or whatever it is, think about something that's fully motivating to you. Think of it fully motivating to you and notice what level of intensity you have on a scale of 0 to 10. Okay. And if it's a 10, awesome. If it's less than a 10, okay, then great, that we can come back to that. Now, in your mind's eye, take that picture with your eyes closed, and we're going to play with this a little bit. I want you to show you how you can actually shift your thinking about things, both to be more intense and less intense. So take that picture, and I want you to go ahead and if it's in color, make it black and white. Make it black and white. Again, if you're driving, please don't play along. You can play again on a replay. Make it black and white. And raise your hand if you feel a reduction in intensity by reducing the color. Raise your hand if I can see that. Okay, awesome. About a handful of you. Now, make it smaller. Make it the size of a postage stamp. So shrink it down the size of a postage stamp. And now, raise your hand again if you feel less intensity on that. So I can see that. Awesome. Okay, cool. I know it's not still fun, but we'll put it back, I promise. Now, push it far away. Push it out into the distance, like 100 miles off into the lower left-hand corner of your field of vision. Dark and dim lower left-hand corner. And now raise your hand if there's still lower intensity. Yeah, even more, even less intensity. Okay, cool. Anyone here feel no intensity now of motivation towards that? Hands up in a couple of you. Yep, usually about 10% of people will have zero intensity. Okay, cool. Come back to the room. Now, right now, your picture of motivation is off in the corner, 100 miles away. That's not very exciting. That technique is just in case you ever get too motivated in life. I'm kidding. That's not really practical. We don't really need that at all. The goal of that is to show you how you can take a picture and you can make it positive or negative, not by what's in it, but how you're doing it. These are called submodalities. So, and we're going to switch it back here in just a moment. I promise we'll not leave it there. We're going to actually make it better if we can. So a submodality is the way we see it. So if I take a picture and I make it brighter, for most people, not all, but generally most people, it's going to be more intense. If I make it clear, vivid, all those positive characteristics you might imagine, they work for most people. If you're different, that's okay. We'll find how it works for you. But let's go ahead and fix that. Let's go back to where we were a moment ago, if not make it even better and more compelling. So go ahead and close your eyes again and reconnect to that picture that was motivating to you just a moment ago. And go ahead in that position, go ahead and make it life size, or make it the right size that it needs to be, that's 100 miles away or wherever that distance is, lower left-hand corner. Give that color back to it. Put it back in full color. In fact, maybe make it brighter than it was before. Make it more vivid, more clear, more focused. Trust your unconscious or subconscious mind to make it the right characteristics for you so that once it comes back, which we'll do in just a moment, that it's fully in that right position for you. So in just a moment, I'm going to count to 3, and I want you to imagine that there is like a slingshot or some type of connection between where it's supposed to be and where it is now. And it's going to getting stronger and stronger. And we're going to have it float right back into position, right about 100 miles an hour, coming back in just a moment. 1, 2, 3. Just going to allow yourself to release that slingshot. Allow that picture to come zooming right back, larger than life, perhaps even this time. Make it as bright or as clear as you need to give you that 10 intensity. And then simply ask your unconscious mind to keep it here, to keep it in the right space, wherever it needs to be, so that you can feel motivated about this anytime you bring this picture up to mind. Okay, welcome back. And then just come back to the room, leaving that where it belongs. So this is part of NLP. A lot of times NLP is language and communication. This is internal communication. This is how you communicate with your unconscious mind to take control of it. Because a lot of times we think that we just feel about things the way we feel about things, but we actually have control. If we see something that we don't like, if we have a fear or anxiety coming up, we can ask ourselves, how am I picturing this? Oh, it's right here and it's bigger than life. All right, let's shrink this down. Believe it or not, that actually shifts your experience of it simply by doing that as well. So that's one technique. You can change how you say something. So ask a different question, change your voice tonality. You can also shift not only what you're thinking about, but how you're thinking about it as well.